So today we're going to quickly talk about running records, the purpose of running records, and how to actually use running records for our instruction. So my first question for us is, how do you currently assess students in reading? So what do you do and what do you use in order to assess your students? Okay, so think about all the things that you use and you do. And in a minute, you're going to talk to the people around you and make a list of all the things you use in order to get your reading mark and also to teach reading. Like, in other words, what information do you use in order to guide your instruction? So think about all the things that you use to do to get some data from your students.
What is it? Sight word assessment. To load.
Yeah, so say it again. So you're running records?
Running records, DRA.
Yeah.
Dibbles.
Dibbles.
Conferring notes.
Anecdotes.
Sight words. Guided reading notes. Sight words.
So anecdotes, running records, dibbles,
Dibbles. DRA.
which is running records. Okay, so those two. Okay, awesome. Okay. All right. So let's just share out what are some ways you already assess your students in reading. What are some ways you're assessing them? What's one way? Okay, which is a running record, right? Yeah, which is running records. What else?
Anecdotal notes.
Thank you. So anecdotes. Yeah. Good.
Looking over the reading responses and checking there's a standard. Checking, like they're looking at their reading responses and looking at the standards and see if they meet it and how much they need to grow.
Awesome.
Comprehension question.
Yeah, okay, no, good. Okay, so you're doing already some great things in reading to assess your students. So we're going to be looking at running records. And today, really, the purpose of it is just to kind of have a clearer understanding and a real sense of, like, as a school, this is how we can address it, and this is how we can use the data. So think of those three things, those three questions right now. How comfortable are you using running records? In other words, how comfortable are you at administering running records? And then how good are you, or how comfortable are you at using the data, right? Administration is one thing, but using the data is another different story, right? Like, so think about that. What do you like about them, and what don't you really like about them, right? It's a love-hate relationship. I'll be really honest. So there's some really great things about it, and there's some things that the logistics of it can be arduous, right? It can take a long time, whatever. So let's just get it out on the open, and then we'll get over it, right? Just get over it. So talk to the people around you about those three questions.
That takes time. Like, I have to sit really think about it.
It's sticky. That's why I'm like.
Try something different.
Okay.
I only to do that proper analysis with my whole which is really bad. Yeah. But because of the extra time that takes.
What grade are you teaching, sorry? Second. Okay.
I like running records. I like running records a lot. I don't mind the time
Yeah.
it takes. I feel like I don't do them enough. And it's been a while since I've done them, but we've got DRAs coming up, so I'm just waiting. And I
Yeah.
can feel myself just like, I want to do that.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 to 4 weeks is the shelf life. If you have instruction, then 3 to 4 weeks you should see some difference. If there's no instruction, then it should be the same. It will probably be the same. right? Yeah.
And it's just determining like what miscues go to what thing, like the data,
Yes.
like reading the data.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll make my notes and stuff, but then I go back and I'm like,
Yeah.
quiet.
Yeah, the miscue analysis you have to do like on the spot in the
Yeah.
moment, I feel like, and sometimes that can be difficult.
The MSV, like MSVs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that you can actually make notes based on that. That
Yeah.
makes sense when you go back.
Yeah.
I do it as I go, otherwise it won't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It won't happen.
Yeah. I do MSVs on the ones that the kids fail the most. Yeah, I don't do it on every single one because you're like, they're passing it. It's like, yeah. Trying to think of shortcuts because sometimes it's.
Yeah, shortcuts.
Yeah, we're gonna do shortcuts today. Okay. Do that, guys. Danielle, do you guys use running? Danielle, do you have experience in running records? You do, right? 'Cause from the old, you have experience in running records from your old school.
I don't have as much. You know who's really good at but she's not in here.
Not in this session.
So she's the one who brought this. We've never had the Fontes and Pinnell sheets until this year. Like, I was talking to Melissa King last night, and she's like, "Yeah, we have those. We have those." And I was like, "What? That exists, okay?" Because I thought we only had DRA.
No. Yeah. We're gonna do two. We're gonna do a Fontes and Pinnell one, and we're gonna use a DRA.
Yeah.
The DRA,
Well,
it's good, but it's not good. There's too much.
It's a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
But maybe it gives you a lot, which is helpful.
If you have
especially
time,
at, like,
but if you have
the
time
first
to
grade
look
level.
at it, but in upper grades, if you look at the DRA one, they do a lot of, the kids do a lot of writing, which kind of makes me a little nervous because I think if they're not eloquent enough in their writing, because you'll see, I assessed a student in fourth grade, and I'm like, I just asked for clarification. I'm like, what do you mean by that? And if they write it down, I don't know.
That's another skill getting in the way of them showing.
Exactly, right? You're writing for reading versus, right? So I'm.
You know, so we don't do a DRA anymore.
Okay.
Because we have Pimbits now, but we used
Okay.
to. But then the question was like, who's administering it? Because the teacher administering it
Yeah,
has
exactly.
a lot of bias in terms of assigning that level.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's talk about this. Lots of conversation. Wow. What are some things that you're liking about running records? Let's go for the positives. Yay. What are some things? It's so early in the morning, I can tell. Yesterday you were all like, hey. Today you're like, so what are some things that you think are good about running records? Yeah, Melissa?
Actually taking that time to sit down and listen to them read.
Okay. Can you just say it a bit louder because I think it's harder because of the fan and all that
You're
stuff. Yeah.
actually sitting down and taking the time to listen to your students read individually.
Okay.
And you have you have the real level for our students, so we feel comfortable to share with the students the books or help them if they have trouble with that.
I think if you're skilled at running records, which I'm not, but if you're skilled, you can use it as a diagnostic and say exactly what that kid is
Yeah.
struggling with, but you have to be a skilled
Exactly.
administrator.
And I'm going to add on to that, Danielle. I love how the fact that you're talking about it as a formative assessment versus summative, right? In other words, it's not just how, it's not just for the report card, but like, how can I use this information in order to guide my instruction, right? So Mary Clay, in years ago, created this idea of running records. It really is a diagnostic, like you said, about what is the student doing as a reader? What are his or her strategies when reading? And it wasn't necessarily ever created for, at the end of a report card period, this is what level you're at, and therefore it's going to transfer. We know as schools, we've used it for that, but the real purpose of running records was written for people who did reading recovery. If you're familiar with reading recovery in the United States and in Canada, it is a one-to-one intervention that it lasts 12 weeks with a student. And running records is kind of like that analysis of what is the student doing. What's difficult about running records? Let's get it out in the open. Say it nice and loud. Time, right? Yeah, it's good, but it takes time. Particularly if you have students who are like, they pass this one, you're like, great, I have to do another one, and then I have to do another one. Or the opposite, right? You're kind of like, so they're not doing well, where is that level? Okay? I also think of the beginning of the year, running records are difficult because they haven't had 2 months of instruction in English or in Spanish or any instruction on the whole. It's difficult. You're like, what level are they at? It's difficult. What else?
Consistency of making sure they're up to date, so before we making sure
Yeah, definitely. Tedious. The same story. It's like after a while, you're like, come on, just say the word. Come on. Yeah.
And on the other hand, if they're going too fast and making sure that you get all of the errors.
Yeah. As you get higher, kids are just like whizzing through it. You're like, whoa, 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 relax. Right? Yeah, definitely. I also think about consistency in a way, I'm going to add on to you, Amber, consistency within the actual administration, right? So I know Padma, and Padma works so hard, right? And so when she's giving me comprehension answers, I'm like, I know what she really means, right? Does that make sense? Like there's some emotional factor there, right? It's kind of like, oh, but Padma's trying, and she's been trying for 4 weeks to get to this level. I'm just going to give it to her, right? I mean, that's the reality, right? I mean, like sometimes we mark with our hearts as well. And it's frustrating when a kid hasn't moved up, right? So that's also difficult because at the same time, I think about the consistency. Is it fair for the student, and is it fair for another student who's really past the level to get the same mark? That's what I just think about. Okay, so really quickly, a definition, a working definition you can say, is that word is a tool that helps teachers to identify patterns, right? So when I say patterns, I mean generally when you have a running record, that's what he or she does by themselves, right? So when the kid is reading in front of you, generally, that's what they do by themselves, okay? So that's what they do when they're reading by themselves. So in other words, if they get stuck on something and they skip the word, that's what they generally do, okay? So the second part of that is that we want to make sure that we use the information we see the strategies that the student uses in order to make meaning, okay, of the words and the actual understanding of the story. Okay. So you may have noticed there, but nowhere does it say it is for the final report card, right? It really is for formative assessment, is the first and foremost principle or reason why we have running records. All right, so a few basic things. There are formal and informal running records. So what do you think when I talk about formal running records, what do you think that may mean? DRA, Fontes and Pinnell, things that have already been published, right? Some of us are familiar with this one, DRA, right? Formal meaning it's already scripted, right? The running records are already there for you. Let's see if I can find the page. Good God. Good God. Okay, we're looking. It's already there for you so that you just literally put check marks on top of it to say that's what the kid does, la, 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 la. Informal is, I'm going to sit with Crystal, and I'm just going to listen to her. I'm going to put check marks on the words that she has right on a scrap piece of paper, and then the ones that are wrong, I'm going to write down which ones were wrong. Okay? Initially, when running records were created by Mary Clay, they didn't ever have this. It was always informal. Like she always wanted the idea, like I'm just going to listen to a kid, and I'm going to write down what they're doing correctly and what they're not doing correctly, and teach based on that. Then teachers, it became more popular, just not reading recovery teachers, but everyone started using them, and there was a need for this. Okay, so it's the principle is the same, but this is formal versus informal. My next question for you guys is, what's the shelf life of data of running records? 3 to 4 weeks. 3 to 4 weeks. So in other words, if you have instruction within 3 to 4 weeks, generally you'll see a little difference the next time you do it. Right? If you've taken the data from the running records and said, so this is what I need to teach them, in 3 to 4 weeks, you should see some difference. Right? If you don't do any instruction whatsoever, generally, it will stay or it might go down. Right? So think of your kids in the summer, right? 8 weeks later, what happens generally? They go down a little bit, and you teach really quickly, and then they go back up. Okay? So I know I've heard some conversation, like I'm waiting for my DRAs, waiting for DRAs. I'm going to recommend try doing an informal just to make sure. I was talking to Grace yesterday, and Grace was like, oh my gosh, like my kids moved up and la, 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 la. You can do informal, okay, for your own purposes. 3 months later, oh my gosh, she's been moved up 4 levels, and I've been teaching the wrong level. For it was like grades you almost as your move up or letters, right? Go like I think of the child people. They move from C, and from first grade they move from C to level I. That's 7 levels in 8 months. It's a lot of movement. Whereas upper grades, you don't move as much. Okay. So what we're going to talk about now is this stuff. MSE. That is. This is we're like. Right. The DRA. When you 6, someone who never did a record, the first step. They read a part of the book. You don't read the entire thing, generally, out loud, right? And while the kid is reading, you're putting check marks on all the words that are said or, yeah, are read correctly. Anytime they say something wrong, you put what they say wrong on top of the word that was originally there. So, for example, if the word is dog and they say puppies, you write the word puppies on top. Pretty straightforward. Okay? After you do that, generally, ask the kid what happens in the story. So the first thing, the second part is retelling. They teach you, you write down things. The third part is you ask comprehensions. So there's 3 parts. That's what kids are able to do when they're 3 parts to the story. So we're going to do the first page first, because that's the hardest generally to administer. The other stuff is pretty easy to administer because they're just talking, but to mark is harder. Does that make sense? This is harder because the kids are like, especially upper grades, they're just going like, it's like, they're going quickly, and you're like, whoa, slow down. Okay? I'll be very, very honest with you about this. The higher they are, the faster they go. I'm not too concerned sometimes about every little thing, right? So generally, upper grades, if they're already at your grade, they're generally going to do very well here. I'll be very frank with you. Generally, they're getting 97, 98%.
The kids who aren't,
yes.
we need to slow down and mark.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So I'm often, like, if they go quickly, and you'll see the one student, Rafa. Who has Rafa in this class? Whose kid is Rafa? Yours? Good, cute kid. He's a cute kid. He's a cute kid. Like, he just talks. I talk as quickly as I'm like, whoa. And so I didn't do it in this video, but I might say, give me 1 second. Like, you can actually stop and say, whoa, give me 1 sec. You're a super fast reader. And he's like, oh, that's cool.
For you to like catch up.
For you to catch up. Okay, so feel like you're like, you can't slow down for a second, because that's the reality. Whereas the younger they are, you're like, speed it up. Work with me, right? The word is cat. Come on. Like, cat, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Like, you're like, good God. Okay, so you have those 2 opposites. Now, we're going to talk about meaning, structure, and visual. Okay, when children are reading or decoding, they need to use those 3 cueing systems in order to get the word right. Right? So in other words, let's do the first one, meaning. Sorry. Okay. So we're talking about the semantics of language. Right? So meaning, I'm going to give you a very simple one. So if the text says, Emma went to look at the puppies, and she said, or he says, sorry, go back in. Wow, okay. No, it's, come on. All right, there we go. Emma went to look at the dogs, right? That's a good example. So why do you think she replaced puppies with dogs? Looked at the picture, and it makes sense, right? It doesn't change the story too much, right? She's using meaning, right? She's like, okay, so I see, like for example, especially early, your guys don't do that as much, but early kids do, or English language learners do. Like ones who just came off the plane, I almost said boat, but I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense, so politically correct. Off the plane and said, and still trying to figure out language. If they see the word couch and they say chair, it kind of makes sense, right? Because they might think a couch is a chair. So the child understands that things need to make sense, right? So if they say, for example, girl instead of woman, it still makes sense because it doesn't change the meaning too much. Okay, so that's meaning, right? So that's an easy example. Okay, so you almost celebrate it. You almost go, Paolo, good for you. You know what? You are always thinking about does it make sense in the story? Yeah, Danielle.
I think sometimes
Yeah.
higher readers do that too because they're thinking and they're processing so fast
Yeah.
that they're summarizing as they read and then they give
Yeah.
you a word that means the same
Exactly.
doing it. So
Exactly. Like sometimes we do that ourselves. So you almost can predict what the word will be because we have an understanding of the entire story. Right? Which generally, it's good just for us to note that. Okay, so that's meaning. That's the M. Structure. Oh. Sorry. Wow, it's kind of crazy on me. Okay, that's puppies again. All right. Here we go. In other words, what they're doing is that they're replacing it with something that is the same kind of structure in language. So for example, not come over. Instead of saying did not come over, they say didn't. Right? Structurally, you can say that, right? That you can say that in English. That's right? That's the syntax of language. So in other words, they're replacing a noun with a noun, a verb with a verb. You know? So you might say, so the sentence might be yesterday I was running. Instead of running, they say yesterday I was swimming. Even though it doesn't make sense, they understand that language, a verb is replaced with a verb. A noun is replaced with a noun. Does that make sense? So they understand how language is written, how English language works. A lot of our kids do this. As they get higher, the kids lower do not have the syntactics. They don't know how the English language works just yet. Okay? On the other hand, we have visual. So, Jimmy got a bat. Instead, he said, Jimmy got a bowl. When I say visual, he sees the letter B. He's like, oh, I need to think of a word that starts with the letter B. It must be bowl. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but I know the letter B is there, therefore it must be bowl. Or, it might be this. Here we go. There are 3 puppy. Instead of there are 3 puppies. Like dropping the letter at the end is a big thing our kids do. Right? So there's some visual idea there as well too. They see most of it, but they don't see the end. That happens in a lot of our ESL learners, right? They don't necessarily read to the end. Yeah. Yeah.
They put Jimmy got a ball.
Yep.
That also be meaning, visual, and
Yeah, so if the picture is of it's weird, right? If a picture is of a ball, of a bat, it's more meaning, right? So it has to,
but
without a picture.
could it be like
It could be both. It could be both. It could be both. He has some meaning, he has some structure, but his visual is the issue he's having with, right? Does that make sense? He's having issues with visual. Okay. You're like, why is he saying this? Okay, so what we're going to do right now is that we're going to actually do a running record. Okay, so we're just going to try it out. It's the same running record for everyone. Yeah, Grace. Please. Yeah, sure. Please.
When I think when we did some of this stuff,
Yes.
it seems to me like it depends on the level of like as a
Yep.
kid though. Because a kindergartner, if they read ball instead of bat,
Yes.
they are using visuals.
Yep.
because we would expect them to use the first letter. But like a third grader is not using visual, right?
Yeah, don't even look at the grade. Just say, what is he doing? Yeah, so if you give it to someone and just say, so obviously they're using initial visual, but they're not using the end visual. Right, yeah.
When you have to just put the V or not.
Yeah, exactly. So don't worry about that yet. Okay, because I don't want to scare everyone just yet. Go talk about that. Okay, so we're going to do a running record on a second, third grade student. That's the first one. And the next one is going to be a fourth-ish student. Your student there, Rafa. Okay? You're going to see him all over you. It's like in 2 different screens. So the first student, we're going to use the Fontes and Pinnell one, the newer version. And some people have been asking me, what is the difference between the Fontes and Pinnell and the DRA? So the DRA I really like because it has lots of information. Lots of information also means lots of time. Straightforward. The Fontes and Pinnell one I like as well too because it has lots of information. The only difference with this is that the people who wrote the whole leveling system wrote these books. So I think for me, there's a better correlation. And you'll see the questions on this page are much tougher than the DRA ones. So I get more information from Fontes and Pinnell. Okay? Because I found the DRA one just a bit more general, whereas these ones, you'll see the kid's going to struggle. Okay? So we're going to do the running record. This is the first page. So take the first page, and then we'll also have the questions afterwards. So you're getting 2 sheets. It's the other file. It's called Our New Neighbors. It's called Our New Neighbors. Yeah, yeah. It's on, it's that one there. Yeah. And it's, yeah, good, awesome. Okay. Why didn't you do the video? I did do the video. It's on the video as well too. Can you do the video first? Can you also upload the video? Can I just squeeze through here? I'm so sorry. Bit of an intermission. Sorry, Francisco. Okay, I just need also the video itself. If I can just, come on. Let's just call it. Can you? Thank you.
To the microphone.
Good. It's not liking me.
I know.
Can you?
Wait.
Is it this one?
It's here, no?
No, I didn't actually upload it. So can you get this out? I'll put it on my computer. Get it off my computer and put it on there. Sorry, I totally forgot.
No worries.
How funny is that?
Take it.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, and I'll talk. Okay, so Brian is kind enough to send out this PowerPoint to you because I didn't have a copy of the book. So I want us to read the book first. Okay, so I want us to read the book first so you know exactly what you're expecting the kid to answer. So, Francisco, can you be kind enough to turn to each page? Our New Neighbors, you have the PowerPoint, I believe. If you don't have it, we'll just read off this page. Okay? Do we need more sheets on this side? Okay, oh, it stopped. Do we need more? Okay. There's this page. And okay. All right, and then this. Okay, there you go. So Our New Neighbors. And on the next page, Francisco, can you just kind of do? There's a little introduction, and you'll see the introduction is actually written there. So I'll tell the student families on the street got a note from their new neighbors. In the note, their new neighbors invited them to see their surprise horses. Read to find out what kind of horses they were. Great. So let's just read it. Our new neighbors. Okay. So on Saturday morning, Ben saw an envelope on the front page, on the front steps. Mom, Dad, Polly, he called. Look what I found. So the kid's reading out loud. Dad, what do you think? Read. What do you think they say for that? Read or read? They say read. Dad, read the note. So that's an error, just so you know. You'll see it in a second. Because they don't know. Poor English kids, right? Read and read, it's the same word. And, right? Dad read the note that was inside. Hello, neighbors. We just moved into the big house on the corner. Please come to a party Saturday at 7 o'clock. We want to meet you, and we want you to meet our horses, Max and Flo. Looked at one another on our street, asked Dad, I hope we can have pony rides. I hope they're big white horses. Maybe they'll give us a ride. Well, Mom, that house is just right for horses. It has a big yard, and there's that red barn in back. Look, said Ben, the neighbors are reading a note too. Mom and Dad called across the street. Did you get that note about the horses, Dad asked? What do you think it's all about? Mom asked the neighbor. I don't know, he said. I don't think that barn is big enough for horses. Another neighbor popped her head out the fence. For the word popped, what do you think they'll say instead of popped? Pooped? Or popped? Pooped is a fun one. I like that one. We had a book a long time ago before we bought this series. It was called The Pup in the Mud, and they kept kinder. Great. Guess what they said for kinder? Poop in the mud. Right? So they kept on saying, and then there's this one part that goes, I love my pup. I hug my pup. The best story. Like, I love my poop. I hug my poop. Like, it's just the best. It's just funny, you know. You have to have those days, right? You're like, you just need laughter, right? So another neighbor popped her head over the fence. I can tell you something else, she said. Every day when I pass the house, I hear loud someone is hammering. All the neighbors were excited about the mystery. And in this series, there's a little square. And that square means that they stop reading out loud. And the rest, they read by themselves. On Saturday morning, everyone walked to the house on the corner. Ben pointed to a fence on the fence. What does it say? Ben asked. Polly read it to him. Welcome, neighbors. Are you ready to meet our horses? Please walk around to the backyard, Max and Flo. They walked around to the back. They saw all the neighbors standing in front of the barn. In the middle were a man and a woman. Good morning, everyone. I'm Max, man, and I'm Flo, the woman. We're so very glad to meet our neighbors. I guess you've been wondering about our horses, she added. Ben piped up. We sure have. Flo grinned, or grinned, right? Our 4 horses are in the barn, ready to meet you. Max swung the barn doors open. Flo turned on the lights. Music began to play. The neighbors leaned in for a closer look. 2 horses went up, 2 horses went down, and all 4 horses went around. Merry-go-round, cried Ben. We found this merry-go-round in the barn, said Max. Flo and I have been fixing it up as a surprise for our new neighbors. Now, who wants to take a ride? Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, right. So he or she reads out loud. You do your writing record. And then on the next page, you flip it over. So at the bottom, you'll see the fluency scoring, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Where are they fluently? Okay, so you circle which one is correct, which one you believe is the right thing. Afterwards, what you're going to do is, I'm just going to get this ready, sorry, is that you're then going to ask the next question. The first question will be, so tell me what you know about the story. So it's pretty much a retell. So you'll start off with, talk about what happens in this story. And the first section, they're just doing a simple retell. And you're like, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. After that, you're then going to ask those specific questions. So why do you think the neighbors keep the horses a secret? And you write down on the left-hand side what they say, or you circle the correct answer. If you read those questions in the center, about beyond and about the text, which ones do you think are the hardest? There's a really hard question that kids always fail. Which one's a hard question? Even for you. Sorry? Yeah, the one about clues is so hard. Kids are like, what? Like when I read that the first time, I had to actually go back, going, where did that happen? Right? Where did that happen? Right? And it's actually on the second last page. It's very, very hard. Right? So as a teacher, if I read that, I'd be like, good information for me to know that I need to teach my kids to infer. Right? So we're going to watch our little friend here do that, try that out, because it's a tough one. Okay, give us 30 seconds while this comes. Okay, so while we listen to this boy, his name's Gustavo, you're gonna try your best to do the running record itself. So put a check mark for every word he says correctly, and anytime he makes a mistake, put the word on top. Let's try our best. He's pretty slow, so it's not going to be that hard yet. All right. All right. Sorry. There we go. There you go. It's called running record. All right. Maybe put it on the desktop, because you know how that's okay. Running record, is that one? Is that one? Yeah, that's a movie, right? Yay, it's Discovery. No, we'll start with this one, and then we'll give them some time to analyze it. Okay, so I have until 9:20, right? Yeah, okay, good, okay. All right. First child, okay, awesome. Okay. All right, so we're going to do the first part, and then I'll stop it, and we'll try to compare notes, how well we do. Here we go. Oh, boy, that's me. All right, play, go for it. It's all good.
Okay, so Gustavo, thanks for coming over. We're going to do some reading today, okay? And just like you do with Miss Emily, I want you to do all the great things that you do with her. So while you're reading, I really want you to think what's happening in the story. Because afterwards, I'm going to ask you some questions, and you're also going to tell me what happens, okay? I'm going to be writing some things down on this sheet of paper, and these are all the great things that you do, okay? Here we go. We're going to read a story called Our New Neighbor. Ben's family and the other families on the street got a note from their new neighbors. In the note, their new neighbors invited them to see their surprise horses. Let's read to find out what kind of horses they are. Okay? So you're going to be reading until this part right here. Do you see that little black square?
Yes.
You're going to read out loud until that black square. After that, you're just going to read in your head. You're going to finish the story by yourself. Okay? So whenever you're ready, you can start.
Our New Neighbors. Our New Neighbors by Jovi Sorba. On Saturday morning, an envelope front steps. Mom, Dad, Chloe, he called. Look what I found. Dad read the note that was inside. Hello neighbors, we just moved into the big house on the corner. Please come to a party next Saturday at 10 o'clock. We want to meet you and we want you to meet our horses, Max and Flo. horses. Everyone looked at one another. Horses on our street, asked Dad. I hope they're ponies, said Ben. When we have birthday parties, we can have pony riders. I hope they're big white horses, said Polly. Maybe they'll give us a ride. Well, said Mom, that house on the corner is just right for a horse. It has a big yard, and there's that red barn in back. Look, said Ben. Their neighbors are reading a note too. Mom and Dad called across the street. Did you get the note about the horses? Dad asked. What do you think it's all about, Mom? Asked the neighbors. I don't know. He said, I don't think that a barn is big enough for horses. Another big egg popped on the head over the fence. I can tell you something else, says Elsa. She said, every day when I pass that house, I hear loud noises, like someone is hammering. All the neighbors were excited about the mystery.
Good. So read the rest in your head, okay? And remember what's happening in the story.
Okay, so, okay. That's slow, right? And that's a slow kid. So a few things I forgot to mention, and I apologize. If a child repeats something, that's not a mistake. I have a typo, as you may have noticed. On the second page, on the second sentence or the second line, it should be and, right? That's my... So, if a child says the same mistake over and over again, it is considered an error unless it is a proper noun. Proper nouns meaning names, cities, anything with a capital, that's going to be a bit off, right? So for example, if they say Carmen, Carmen, Kierman, it's an error every time they say something, they mispronounce. But if they say the same thing, or if they call Carmen, the first time it's an error, and then after that, it's no longer an error if they say the same Carmen. But if they say Carmen, Corman, car, whatever, it's going to be an error every time. So Poped and Asked is going to be an error every time he says it. Okay? So talk to the people around you. Compare your notes. Where are your errors? Yeah, Danielle, you look like...
Is self-correction?
Self-correction is not an error. Okay? So don't count it as an error. Yes? It's still an error. Yes. Because it's not... It's a real word. Like, I'm very forgiving. We're very forgiving to words that don't follow the rule, like names. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Yeah. It is an error.
Insertions are error.
Okay, that's right. Insertions are error, right? Omissions are error. That's right. It is an error every time. Regular words are an error all the time. Punto com. Yes. Punto com. What's that? Yeah. Yeah. Errors? So if it's a name, the first time they say it wrong, it's an error. If they say the same mistake, like if they say Julie and they say Huli, after that it's not going to be an error. One error. But if they say Huli and then they say Julian, then it's error every time. But words, every time they make an error, it's an error. It's the same one. Yep. It's the same. Yep. Okay. Okay. Yes. What's that? That's it. That's it. He doesn't. Yeah, forward it so that he's not reading it. Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Call it as an error. I'm sorry. Huh? Sorry. That's error. All errors. Because we don't say that. I don't say that in English. It's not a word. Pronunciation. I can handle accents, but that's not an accent. That's just an error. And people
I
are like,
definitely agree with you, but in the past, we made like some school-wide decisions in the literacy teams to only count it as one. I think
yeah,
that's
yeah, exactly.
I like
But
your idea. Who's going to teach it then?
it's for formative assessments.
I have a question.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
say this child is in the 4th grade.
Yes.
And he should have known this rule early on.
Yes.
So
You need to
it
teach
really
it quickly.
doesn't- Right.
Very quickly.
Okay.
Okay. Woo, lots of debate. Running records. Bring on the heat. Okay. Yes. I'm sorry. I can't hear. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm sorry. It is no. It is a structural error because that's how. Yeah. It's not visual because that makes sense, right? Because the ed is a structural error. He doesn't. He knows that language. He doesn't know that language is said like we don't talk like that. It's a good error because he knows that it's a good error in a weird way. It's all structure. He doesn't know language. We don't say it like that. That's a visual. He's using visual. He's using meaning. He's just not using structure of language. Oh, it's all like drama. Oh yeah, they're all like, what? What's that? That's fine. Because you're penalizing the child. It's telling get over it.
Yeah.
That's get over it, right? It's not like it's an error. It's wrong. What? How is that going to wrong? You need to take your personal stuff out of it. Don't feel bad for him. Just tell it. I feel worse if I'm not being honest and saying this is what your issue is. That's it. Oh yeah. I know. It's just like, but it's not an error. It is an error. Are you going to be? Yeah. Big time. Woo. Lots of drama. drama. Well, because you know what? The problem is that running records have been used in the past for summative assessment instead of formative. So if you take out the emotional factor of this child, it's telling you we need to teach this kid ED. It's it.
I think that's the best way to, if we let it go, it teaches it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's too late.
And
Because by
yeah.
developmentally they should have known
Yeah, exactly.
before, as far as language is
Exactly. Yeah.
concerned.
It's
Interesting though, he said moved right.
that's something. That's the thing. He did. He said he did. He said moved. He said no. He said move. He said move. He didn't say duh.
He didn't say the
He said he didn't say the duh. He said move. He said some error there.
He omitted the
D. Yes. Okay. Wow. Lots of conversation. Now we're awake. Okay. So my big thing here is, okay, so I know this is very passionate, as you can tell, and you don't even know this student, right? And you're like, oh my God, you're so mean, Vincent. Give him the ass kid. Hey, I'll be the first. I think what's happened in lots of our buildings, and me specifically, I used to use this as summative assessment versus formative. Summative meaning, so it's a make it or break it deal for your report card. Yes, that's a part of the equation, but initially, remember, what is the purpose of this running record? Formative. What do I need to teach the students? What do I need to teach the student? So if the errors, sometimes they're blatant. They're like, oh my gosh, there's so many. For me, it's just saying, this is where I need to teach my kid next. What I need to teach my kid next. So yeah, it looks a little harsh when it's like, well, they're mispronouncing it over and over. Like kinder, instead of saying like, they say lick. I lick the dog. Okay, whoa, okay. It's I lick this, and it's an error every time, right? Yes, it is. But quickly, what am I going to teach as soon as I finish that running record? The word Ike, the I with the E, the silent E, very quickly. And I'm sure if we do it well enough, it will be taught and we move on. This child really, as you can tell, has not learned the difference between ed endings. Right, has not. So somewhere in that equation, somewhere in his journey, no one ever sat, no one, but he hasn't figured that out yet, or he hasn't sat down and remembered when you see the ed, it's sometimes the T sound, the ed sound, and the D sound. Like watched, right? They say watched. So let's kind of go over this. And again, sometimes you'll miss an error. It's not going to make it or break it, okay? It's not going to be, sometimes it's hard for pronunciation as well too. All right, so on the first one, any errors in the first page, which means the first rectangle? So let's go. Okay, let's go to the first one. The first one is on Saturday morning. Ben saw an envelope on the front steps. Ma'am, Dad, Polly, he called it. Did you say call it? I can't remember. Yeah, he called it. Okay, so that's your first error. In the insertion? Yes, please. Yeah. Yeah.
But, so it's not using structure, is he using meaning?
Yes, he's using meaning, right? Because it's visual. It's actually really, it's actually structure. He doesn't understand that language, that we don't say it like that. Okay? He's probably having meaning with that, right? I'm guessing, right? I can't really tell him. Are you using meaning right now? Right? You kind of have to kind of anticipate that he is. It's really a structural issue he's having with language. Yeah, Danielle.
So when you're marking MSB, are you marking
Good question.
what he's using
Yes.
or what he's making mistakes?
Exactly. You are.
Okay.
So that's a good thing. So I'm not going to go too much into detail about this right now, but in other words, you're going to mark what he's using, not what he's missing. Right? So in the M column, you can put like a little check mark. In the V column, you can put a check mark. So for me, I'm like, oh, that's great. So Danielle, my student Danielle, she's using meaning and visual. She's missing the structure of language. Does that make sense? Okay? So it's what they're using, not what they're missing. It's positive versus negative. It actually sounds it actually sounds nicer in a weird way. Okay, so Dad, read. Read. Is it meaning, structure, or visual? What is he using? He's using visual. Definitely using visual. Is he using meaning?
No, because it changes the meaning if it's in the past or present. I mean, a little bit.
A little bit, but definitely structure is the issue there, right? Structure, you would just leave it blank. Meaning, you can put like a little half check mark if you want, right? But it's really the structure he's struggling with. Would you agree? He doesn't know that in the past tense of read is read. We say that in English, right? Because really, it should be Dad reads, right? It's structure. It should be Dad reads if he wants to do the present tense. Okay, keep on going. Moved. Did he say moved? He said move. He said something. He didn't say the D. So again, this time, he still has no structure. He has some visual. He doesn't have the ending, right? Meaning, you can say he hasn't really changed much. His big issue is obviously structure in language. You can start seeing a pattern. Looked. Structure? Yes, he's missing that, so he just has meaning. He has visual. Asked, same thing. Okay, do you see a bit of a pattern here? What are you going to teach this kid? The ED, right? That's pretty straightforward. Like I think of Shannon's class, like she has a little chart, ED. We'll talk about it. What else are his errors? On that page, that's it, I think?
I think he did there.
There? Oh, he did.
There are points.
Where's that, sorry?
There at the first one, and then there.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. It's an error there. Woo! Okay, here we go, next page. We'll go quickly so I want to make sure that you're out of here when you need to be out of here. Okay, what else? He said call it again. Ask it. Are you okay, Danielle? Oh yeah, every day when I pass that horse.
Yeah, horse. He said horse.
Okay, what is that error? He self-corrected. He did self-correct, so that's right. So, why did he self-correct? Because it probably didn't make sense, right? So he's like, oh, that's my meaning. It's like that doesn't make any sense. So overall, if you were his parent, what would you say that he's doing well as a reader? He's visual and he makes meaning. What does he need help with? Structure, the structure of language. A lot of our kids are going to be like that, right, at this level. Fluency, 0, 1, 2, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. What would you give him? I mean, you're not 2 and a 3, right? Definitely not a 0, but definitely not a 4. You know, he's there. There are parts, 2, 3. All right. Whee. Here we go. The next page. So that was only that. All right. We're going to watch him do the retell. Okay, so it's just the first box. Okay, so he's still reading. I'm pretending to listen, or pretending to write notes.
Okay. All right. So I want you to think about the story, and I want you to think, 1, I don't really understand the story. 2 is like, it's okay. And 3, wow, I totally understood the story. What would you give yourself?
3.
3, excellent. Okay, so let's talk about the story, okay? So what happens in the story?
That they found a note on his street, and then it says that if they want to play with their horses, and they imagine which horses they are, like pony, and they say, I think they're going to take us for a ride.
Okay, then what happened?
Then they go and they see the note of people, and then they see that they say, do you get that note? And then they say yes.
Okay, then anything else that happened?
Yes, they found like a play, but they didn't want like horses real. They was the game of the horses that it take over.
Yeah, what is that? What is that?
These games that go like front and back.
Is there a special word that the author might use?
No. Merry-go-round.
A merry-go-round.
Can you press pause for a second? Okay, so stop for a moment. Talk to the people around you. What would you give that child? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 0, 1, 2, 3. It's on the first rectangle. Within the text, what was his retell like? Was it unsatisfactory, limited, satisfactory, or excellent? Yeah? What would you give the student? This is when it becomes very subjective. It's hard, right? Yeah. Okay, it's not a 0, right? We know it's not a 0. Okay, that's good. We're on the same page. Okay. Okay, just by, let's do a tally. Let's do this. Is it a 1? Okay, it's not a 0. We know that. Right? He read the story, thank God. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3. What would you give him? Just by your fingers up in the air? Yeah, there's between a 2 and a 3. I'd say 3 meaning, like, 2.5, 3. I'm always very conservative on mine, so I always go for 2 because he's missing a few things. Like, it was a bit general. Like, I had to really ask lots of questions, and like he just said they thought they were ponies. There was kind of that. It was a very basic beginning, middle, and end, but it wasn't anything above and beyond. Okay, a 2. If you give it a 3, it's not going to kill him. But I'm just saying, think about being conservative. Okay, so here we go. These are the questions. Okay, so can you bring it back just a little bit, Francis? Okay, so that one question, just because I asked the.
Kept the horses a secret. Why?
They was that. Merry-go-round.
A merry-go-round. Okay, good. Good. So, why do you think the neighbors kept the horses a secret? Why would they keep it a secret?
Because they want to do it like a surprise.
You like surprises, right? Surprises are fun, right? So, now you talked about this before, but what were the people in the neighborhood thinking about the horses?
They think that the horses were real and they were like ponies, and they take care for them.
Okay. Now, do you know that when I say the word clues, do you know what the word clues means?
Yes.
Okay, what does it mean to you?
Like they tell you like which are like clue is like when you see that there's like a little bit that it can tell you what is going to
That's
happen.
what's going to happen. Good, excellent.
Okay.
So now this author here, she...
Okay, I know that it's not in there, that question, but I asked that question because it's a word that not all the kids know, right? So I wanted to make sure they knew it before they could even, like, because that helps me, right? If he's like, I don't know what a clue is, I know I'm going to predict that this next question is going to be even more difficult, right? So whereas he knew it, so at least I can kind of support him in that idea. I'm not going to tell him what a clue is. I'm not going to tell it. I'm not going to say it. You know, I might, you know, like, so this is why I like these, because it kind of tells me, like, somewhere in my reading lessons, I'm going to teach clues or inferring. Like, there's a clue, and then so it's not a new thing when it comes to this. I don't suggest teaching to the test, but for me, it actually helps me to say, oh, I need to teach my kids inference. Or I need to teach the kids that make sure when you're reading it, if something pops out, that's something to post-it notes. Right? It's not teaching to the test, but these levels are much more deeper than I like the cat, I like the dog. Right? That's a hard question. Right? So let's see how he tries to answer, the words tries to answer this question.
This is clues in the story that helps us think, helps us guess that the courses at the end are not real courses. If you find any of the clues, I want you to really think about the reading that you had and think about some clues that maybe you read.
That I found a lot the word of merry-go-round.
Okay, so before this part, are there any things in the story
So it's
that
actually
says
on the
maybe
page, look.
this is going to not be a normal course?
I even showed it, but I didn't say this is your page.
Think about that.
I just
Is there any things that in the story that says, wait a second, this is not a normal course. These are not going to be normal at the bar.
I think that the only part that they tell you the clue is in here, because in here are
Okay, good. So we have that one, and I'm going to tell you the truth, that somewhere in the story there are some clues. The author definitely put some clues. Try to think hard as to maybe what some of the clues.
He's like, great.
the clue that I found when I was reading.
Okay, was what?
It was like in all the pages I found a lot of
Okay,
things.
then show me one.
Darn! Yeah.
Here.
Okay, and how about in the words that he uses?
Okay,
Is there anything that of the description about clues?
Yes.
Okay, so how is that a clue?
Because the horses don't always go around and around. They only go like these and like these and like this. And here it says went down, horse went around and around.
Good for you. High five. That's a hard question, right? You have to really, really think. But you want to have that.
Okay, whoa, right? But I mean, like, I prompted him, but not to the point, like, I even showed the page, obviously. But it's a tough question. Like, and I kept on pushing him, but he finally got it. I asked pretty much the 4 questions, because he found the page. Can you show me some of the pages? Now the question is, he a 2 or a 3? Would you feel comfortable saying a 2, right? Because you needed some prompting. He actually needed quite a bit of prompt. He got it. Like, he's not a 1. If he didn't get it, I would have definitely given him a 1. Right? He has a good understanding, but that was hard. Like, that was a tough, like, the poor kid, I was like, oh God, please get it. Okay, so far he has 4, and so you put a subtotal of 4 underneath that. And then it says, add 1 for any additional understandings. And when additional understandings may mean something like, this is a connection. I can think, this reminds me of the book, something that I didn't even ask. Like, this reminds me of when we went to the zoo, and la 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 la. Anything above and beyond that's not a part of this conversation. Like, he's making a deeper understanding. If, like, he could be like, yeah, clues, just like we were reading a book, inference. I mean, that kind of, something that's like, not necessary, but like, oh, I never thought about that. You'd give them an additional point. In this case for this one. Remember, it's grade 2, 3. Yeah, it's grade 2, 3. But if it's something like this is similar to the story this because that's definitely it, right? Like in your grades, you would definitely be like, what do you mean? Tell me more, right? A good example is like if he said, oh, I have a horse. Okay, that's not the strongest thing. But if it's like, wow, the story reminds me of this because, yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, I get it. So overall, he got 4 out of 7. Would you say, más o menos? So go to the other side. So he's actually at limited comprehension right now. Yeah, Grace? Yeah. Yeah.
It's confusing that here we said he's satisfactory
Yeah.
and he's satisfactory and then added up to one.
Yeah. That's c'est la vie. Yeah. It's limited. It's there. Yes, he has it, but not. It's
He was satisfactory in both.
the satisfactory would have been like I guess 3, 2. Let's see. Good question. I'll think about it. So I don't have the answer. I'll be honest with you. I just work with what they say. Okay. So overall, here we go. Accuracy, is he independent, instructional, or frustrational? Instructional. Because how many errors did he have? How many did he have, sorry? 14, yeah. I'd say más o menos, right? So you're going to circle on the right hand column where how many errors the math's already done for you. Because I know sometimes I'm like doing division. I'm like, no, I don't do that. I'm literacy, right? So that's your job, right? To do the math. So what we've done is just circle. So far he's instructional. And accuracy. His comprehension is between, you can even say he's between satisfactory and limited if you want to really, but overall, this is not his instructional, this is not his independent level, it's his instructional level. Right? So you have things to teach him. Let's talk about this quickly. What are you going to teach him? Danielle, what's one thing you would teach him? Let's talk about decoding first. ED. Straightforward. Another thing you would teach.
Just looking at all endings, because sometimes
Yes.
he omitted endings.
Yeah, which right now it's not doing much, but later it's going to affect his reading. So in other words, you don't want kids to come into your class in 4th grade and the kids are saying, so I talk it to my teacher, right? It's wrong. It's wrong. Okay, fluency, would you work on fluency? How would you work on fluency? Shared reading, right? How would you teach that whole clues thing? How would you teach it though? It's definitely inferring. Using pictures. I would even do a little like guided reading group. Like if this group is J, I would do for guided reading for them, I would do all mysteries. My books would be mysteries. Oh, we're going to be reading mysteries right now. We're going to be looking for clues. We're going to be reading for clues. Where are the clues? And throughout the whole thing, I'd be not prepping, but I'm like, some clues. What do you learn? Where's another clue? It's like, oh, okay. So then when this book comes to the child, so we're doing, you know the word clues. There's some clues here. They're like, oh, I got it. Boom, boom, boom. Okay? So, wow. Lots to think about, right, with our friend here. Our friend here, Gustavo. Yeah.
Before we start reading the book or having that read this book, you can say we're going to be looking for clues this time and process.
You can, but at the same time, I mean, like, he has the book in front of him, so he can have gone back to it. It's not a big thing, right? Does that make sense? Okay, and so something that's a great question. The book is in front of him, right? It's not I memorized the entire book, right? And I don't read them. Yeah.
And if you found, for example, in the classroom, and another student are in another level that are having trouble with clues too, so maybe we can demonstrate the lesson to
There we go. Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. So these kids get stuck on this for the longest time for that reason, right? And I can say, well, I'm going to reword it, but I need to make sure that I teach it. That's all I look at it. Okay, so I'm going to give you one more example before you head out. Yeah, Melissa.
How do you feel about them rereading a story for comprehension and second time silently on their own?
If they think that's something they have to do, then they have to do it. I'm not going to prompt them.
Okay,
right? But if they're reading the entire story and they're spending another 6 minutes, I'm worried. Right? Does that mean, like I might go back and kind of go, okay, so no, we do that as adults, right? So you kind of go back and kind of go, okay, there's that part, I remember. But if I'm going to reread the entire thing, then that means that the first time I was reading, I was just reading for decoding and not for necessarily for meaning.
I was thinking that they were just reading for the teacher.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe that's the case, right? And I'm wondering about his habits as a reader. Does he do that by himself when he's by himself? What is he really doing when he's reading? Is he reading just to look like he's reading? You know how kids are. Right? You know how they are, right? How's the book going? How's page 1? It's a great page, but let's try reading the second page. So that's that. Well, last question. What do you think? So there's a book. Okay, here we go. What do you think kids will say with this answer? So I'm going to choose, I can't remember your name, sorry. Crystal. What is Crystal like? Think about the answer. A typical ELL learner, ELL student, what will they say? What is Crystal like? Any grade. So talk to the person next to you and think of what will the answer be? A typical answer. What is Crystal like? What will a student say? Okay, Amber, what do you think? Okay, yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. So when you do the running records later on, that's one of the questions probably may pop up in a running record. What is this person like? And typically they'll talk about the likes of the person versus what are they like, right? What does she like, right? So you might get this. Oh, she likes black because she wears black sweaters. She likes scarves. She likes running. She likes eating hot dogs. She likes whatever, right? What question does that answer? What does she like? Versus what is she like? It's a very subtle nuance in our language, is and does. And we say it very quickly. What's Danielle like? What's Danielle like? We even say it like that. What's Danielle like? Oh, I just met the new principal. What's he like? Oh, like, yeah, he's nice. Seems like a nice guy. We know what that means. But kids are like, I think he likes teaching, right? So, and the big thing here I'm thinking about is, do we teach that? We have to teach that one day. Somewhere in there. You don't want them leaving your building thinking, what is he like? Is actually means the likes and dislikes of a person. So when I think of that one, especially what's he like, it means you're teaching character traits, right? That's a very, very important thing. That happens already in 3rd grade all the way up. 3rd grade is a big thing for character traits. 4th and 5th grade, you're looking at deeper character traits, right? What are those character traits? In 4th and 5th grades, in running records, they should be looking at, when you start reading them, they're looking at the author's craft. It's hard. Like, it's hard stuff. How does the author show you that Crystal is a nice person? Right? And so that's why I like writing records, because it really tells me where should I teach and what the kid's struggling with. That's really how I use it. Upper grades, my biggest suggestion for you is, yeah, look at this. Look at this is quicker for you. It's the comprehension that is the hardest for you. Because that's for me. They know how to decode. They know how to decode if they're in your classroom already. It's like they don't know how to necessarily think about the reading. Younger kids, they're struggling with decoding, generally is the issue. Does that make sense? It's developmental, totally developmental. So you're going to be doing like, and at the end, you're going to have those bigger conversations, which really relies on why, you do strategy lessons, conferences, guided reading, because you want to talk out the stuff. So in upper grades, I often will look at the running record questions and start trying to ask those questions as often as I can so they're familiar with that. You can say you're teaching to the test. For me, I'm teaching.
Well, and
yeah.
We don't have a program for Reader's Workshop.
Okay.
So what a great
Just
resource,
yet.
What a great resource
Yeah.
for us to use at
Yeah.
the same time.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So in that note, Danielle, can you email me that, and Melissa? I'm going to send you copies, questions that they give. I'm going to give you some examples, some exemplars of upper grade books, like STU, especially for upper grades. And I'm going to give you, maybe at a team meeting, read them and ask and think about what the questions are asking, and then what do we need to, what standard or benchmark do we need to teach to? Like, it gives me some just direction. And my biggest point at the end of the day is use this for summative assessment, but use it more for formative, right? What am I learning about my kid? I love the fact that he was really persistent as a reader. My friend Gustavo, poor kid, he's like, you saw his face. Oh, great. Let's just like, tell me more. Where is it? So, some information. Whew, lots of talking. So we're going to end a little bit early because you've been sitting a lot, and I apologize. Think about one thing you're taking away from running records, and then talk to the people around you. Yeah, okay.
I want this to be like
Yeah, MSV?
straight
It's
away.
very good.
I got it.
Yeah, it's good.
What about for you, you've never done that before? What did you take away from it? Just